Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The black sand of Valthera surged in the plasma storm, each grain glinting like the ashes of a lost world. Jagged blue lightning slashed the sky, fierce and sharp, like blades of cosmic wrath. Zenith 4, a gray steel outpost amid the rocky plateau, stood silent, its faint lights battling the darkness. From the control tower, Captain Ethan Ward stared out, eyes narrowed against the thick haze. Before him, a plasma orb, a small sphere of light, hovering motionless, emitted a sharp, chilling hum, like the whisper of an alien creature. Ethan tilted his head, brow furrowed. This orb was different. Others drifted, swept by the storm, but this one held still, as if aware. "What does it want?" Ethan muttered, fingers gliding over the console. The screen zoomed in, revealing the orb's faint tremor, its inner light pulsing like a heartbeat. A cold knot tightened in his chest, not from Valthera's chill, but from the orb's strangeness. 3 years at Zenith 4, overseeing plasma orb extraction, the energy source the Alliance bet its future on, and he'd never seen anything like it. "Check the readings," he ordered through the comms, voice low, steady. "Checking," Sergeant Nora Blake replied from operations, keys clacking. "But the equipment's glitching. Energy's 10 times normal. Captain, it's unstable." Ethan's grip tightened, eyes fixed on the orb. "Prep the response team. I'm going out." Nora hesitated. "In this storm? It's too dangerous." Ethan didn't answer. On Valthera, hesitation meant failure. Suddenly, the orb flared, a blinding light like a miniature sun. The outpost shuddered, the tower floor lurching, alarms blaring. "Captain, energy spike!" Nora shouted. Ethan bolted for the door, combat armor heavy on his shoulders, but he ran fast, wind howling, pelting black sand against his visor. The orb, now blazing, hovered meters above the ground, its heat warping the air. Ethan stopped, breath ragged. A slender figure emerged from the haze, standing beside the orb, unmoved, as if the storm didn't exist. It was Lyrian, the new Elithar analyst. Nearly 2 meters tall, her lithe frame radiated in eerie strength. Her silver skin shimmered with glowing veins, weaving like rivers of stars. But her face stopped Ethan cold. A web of energy scars marred half her features, twisted, as if someone had tried to erase her. Her emerald eyes burned, twin flames in the dark, both beautiful and haunting. Lyrian stood there, hand outstretched, inches from the orb, as if listening to it. "What are you doing?" Ethan yelled, voice nearly lost in the wind. He lunged, grabbing her arm. Lyrian turned, eyes narrowing, her voice clear yet strange, like distant bells. "It's calling me." The words halted him, not for their meaning, but for their certainty. Before he could process, the orb erupted. A shockwave flung them both to the sand, its roar drowning all sound. Ethan rolled, head spinning, ears ringing. When he opened his eyes, Lyrian knelt by the orb, hand touching it. The veins on her skin blazed, weaving like living circuits, as if she and the orb were speaking. "Are you insane?" Ethan shouted, scrambling up, yanking her arm. Lyrian didn't budge, her strength belying her frame. "Don't," she said, calm, resolute. "I have to know." Ethan let go, not from agreement, but from her eyes, a determination he'd never seen. The orb dimmed, its light collapsing, leaving a glinting metal shard in Lyrian's hand. She stared at it, emerald eyes wide, voice trembling. "It's not energy. It's memory." Ethan froze, breath heavy. "Memory? From where?" He wanted to ask, but murmurs interrupted. A group of personnel, led by Engineer Harris, approached, defying orders to stay put. "What's she doing?" Harris hissed, voice thick with suspicion. Another soldier muttered, "Look at her. Like a monster." Lyrian didn't react, eyes fixed on the shard, but Ethan saw her shoulders tense. He stepped forward, shielding her, eyes icy. "Enough," he snapped, voice low, commanding. "She just saved us. Get inside. Now!" The crowd retreated, Harris's eyes flashing resentment, but they withdrew. Ethan turned to speak to Lyrian, but she was gone. Only the shard remained on the sand, its light reflecting on the stormy sky. He picked it up, a chill seeping through his glove. Its weight felt wrong, as if it carried the secrets of the universe. Ethan scanned the haze where Lyrian had vanished, questions swirling. Who was she? Why did the orb choose her? He returned to the outpost, shard in hand, unaware this moment would change everything. The storm still raged, but Ethan sensed something else, a terrifying stillness, as if Valthera waited, and Lyrian was the key to what was coming. Cold blue light from the underground lab screens bathed Lyrian's scarred face, her glowing veins glinting like a shattered starfield. She sat alone, motionless, emerald eyes blazing, fixed on the glinting metal shard on the table. Each time her fingers brushed it, her veins flared, weaving like living circuits, as if the shard whispered to her. The lab was silent, save for the faint hum of machines and the distant wail of the storm through thick steel walls. Lyrian tilted her head, scars twitching, as if wrestling a memory that refused to surface. The sliding door hissed open, metal screeching, shattering the quiet. Ethan Ward stepped in, his tall frame in combat armor dusted with Valthera's black sand. He paused at the threshold, eyes scanning the room before settling on Lyrian. "You okay?" he asked, voice soft but edged with concern. "What happened out there? No one understands what you did." Lyrian didn't look up, fingers tightening on the shard, veins flaring then fading. "I'm used to being seen as a threat, Captain," she said, voice cold, sharp as a blade. "Don't worry." But Ethan caught the tension in her grip, as if the shard was all that kept her from breaking. He stepped closer, sitting on a steel chair beside her, metal creaking under his weight. "I don't think you're a threat," he said, voice low, sincere. "But that orb, what did you do?" Lyrian paused, fingers trembling. She set the shard down, its light reflecting in her emerald eyes, sparking like fire. "It's a piece of the guidance core," she said, each word heavy, deliberate. "Ancient Elithar tech. They store memories, of the dead, sometimes of stars. I felt it, through these veins." She raised her hand, veins glowing, weaving like circuits, but uneven, as if damaged. Ethan frowned, eyes locked on her hand. "Memories?" he echoed, voice skeptical. He'd seen Valthera's strangeness, but memories and metal were beyond him. Lyrian met his gaze, emerald eyes icy. "My kind call me the burned," she said, voice bitter. "A flaw in the lineage. My veins aren't perfect. They don't follow the rules." She gave a hollow laugh, joyless. "They think I'm Elithar's stain." Ethan leaned forward, eyes hard. "They're wrong," he said, voice firm. "You stopped that orb. You saved the team. That's not the work of a flaw." Lyrian froze, emerald eyes widening, as if his words were alien to her. She turned away, scars seeming deeper in the dim light. "Saved?" she murmured, voice trembling. "I only delayed it. The guidance core is out there. And it's waking." Before Ethan could press, an explosion shook the lab. The steel floor quaked, screens flickering wildly, displaying dozens of plasma orbs gathering near the outpost, their light blazing like miniature suns. Their chilling hum echoed through the monitors. Ethan sprang up, gripping the console. "What's happening?" he shouted into the comms. "Captain, energy surge!" Nora's voice cracked, panicked. "They're merging! Dozens of orbs, moving like they're aware!" Ethan turned to Lyrian, eyes sharp. She stood, hands trembling, veins blazing. "They're calling each other," she said, voice shaky but certain. "The guidance core is waking. And I'm the only one who can answer." Ethan stared, danger prickling his chest. He didn't understand the guidance core, but Lyrian's eyes, fearful yet resolute, convinced him she was the key. "You're not doing this alone," he said, voice unwavering. "We face it together." Lyrian looked at him, emerald eyes flickering with an unreadable emotion. She nodded, silent, as if his promise was a weight she wasn't ready to carry. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Harris and a group of personnel burst in, eyes brimming with suspicion. "Captain, what's she doing here?" Harris barked, pointing at Lyrian. She caused that explosion, didn't she? Lyrian stood still, hands clenched, but Ethan stepped forward, shielding her. She stopped a disaster, he said, voice low, commanding. You, Harris, if you've got nothing useful to say, shut up and get out. Harris backed off, eyes flashing resentment, but he didn't argue. The group retreated, leaving Ethan and Lyrian in the lab. Ethan turned to ask about the core, but Lyrian had lifted the shard, veins blazing. It's speaking, she whispered, voice trembling. It knows me. And it's afraid. Ethan stood frozen, unsure if she meant the shard or herself. But before he could speak, a second explosion hit, stronger, shaking the outpost. The screen showed a massive plasma orb, blazing, heading straight for Zenith 4. Valthra's black sand swirled fiercely, the storm howling like a wounded beast. Blue lightning tore the sky, illuminating Zenith 4 in brief, haunting flashes. Ethan Ward led a small team, Lyrian, Engineer Harris, and Sergeant Nora Blake, outside, combat armor heavy on his shoulders. The massive plasma orb, now the guidance core, hovered 100 meters up, blazing like a shattered sun, emitting a chilling hum, as if thousands of voices whispered in unison. Ethan squinted through his visor, a chill racing down his spine. Hold formation, he ordered, voice low, sharp. No one moves without my say. Lyrian moved ahead, her slender form cutting through the haze. Her veins blazed, weaving like circuits, reflecting the core's light. She stopped, emerald eyes burning, fixed on the glowing mass. It's trying to communicate, she said, voice trembling but certain. But it's broken. The energy's unstable. Harris, behind, stepped back, voice panicked. She knows too much about this, he shouted, pointing at Lyrian. How do we trust her? She's Elithar, Captain. Ethan spun, eyes icy. Enough, Harris, he snapped. She's our only shot. Shut up and do your job. Nora, silent till now, gripped her energy rifle, eyes flickering between Ethan and Lyrian. Ethan saw her doubt but had no time to address it. The core shuddered, its hum rising to a painful wail. The sand beneath quaked, and a scorching gust swept through, fogging Ethan's visor. Lyrian approached the core, hands trembling. She paused, turning to Ethan, voice low, almost a whisper. I'm not sure I can do this. My veins, they're seen as flawed. If I fail, everything's gone. Ethan met her gaze, seeing the self-doubt in her emerald eyes, but also the fire within, the same fire that made her face the orb before. He placed a hand on her shoulder, voice steady, leaving no room for doubt. I saw you out there, Lyrian. I saw you dare to face this. You're not flawed. You're the flame that lights the way. The words stopped her, eyes widening, as if no one had ever seen her beyond her scars or veins. She nodded, a small gesture, but brimming with resolve. The core quaked violently, unleashing a wave of energy that cracked the ground. Black sand sprayed, and Harris screamed, collapsing. Ethan held his ground, gripping his rifle, eyes on Lyrian. She lunged, pressing both hands to the core's blazing surface. Light engulfed her, a blinding explosion forcing the team back. Ethan shielded his eyes, but through the glare, he saw visions flood the air, ancient cities gleaming on distant worlds, stars flaring then fading, a mighty cosmic alliance crumbling in fire and smoke. A message resonated, not in words, but in feeling. Valthra was once the heart of it all, but it fell, and the core was its last remnant. Amid the visions, Ethan saw a young Elithar girl, veins like Lyrian's, running through a field of light, chased by a mob. Burned! They screamed, hurling glowing metal at her. She fell, emerald eyes brimming with tears, but rose, veins blazing, defying the world. Ethan's heart clenched. Was it Lyrian or her memory? Lyrian screamed, body trembling as the core's energy surged through her. Her veins glowed blindingly, nearly burning, but she held on. The core stabilized, its light dimming, its hum softening to a whisper. Lyrian collapsed, gasping. Ethan rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. You did it, he whispered, voice hoarse. Lyrian looked at him, emerald eyes dim with exhaustion, but a faint smile curved her lips. It accepted me, because I dared to try, she said, voice trembling. Ethan helped her stand, relief mingling with unease. The core still hovered, its light subdued, like a tamed beast. Nora approached, checking her device, eyes still wary. Energy stable, she reported, voice cold. Harris, brushing sand from his visor, glared from a distance, eyes burning with anger. She controls that thing, he muttered to Nora. Too dangerous. We need to report to command. Nora didn't respond, but her eyes wavered, as if weighing his words. Ethan overheard but said nothing. He focused on Lyrian, now leaning against him, breath shallow. You okay? He asked. She nodded, hands trembling. It showed me too much, she whispered. Valthera, it's not just a planet. It's a warning. The team retreated to the outpost, the storm howling behind. Ethan walked beside Lyrian, unease growing. The core's visions, falling civilizations, a girl shunned, haunted him. Lyrian knew more than she said, making her both hope and risk. As they entered Zenith 4's cold steel halls, Ethan caught Harris's hostile glance. The conflict wasn't over. It had only begun. The briefing room at Zenith 4 was cold, harsh white light from the ceiling casting Ethan Ward's shadow long across the steel table. He stood tall, voice low, reporting on the guidance core, its blinding light, ancient memories, and Lyrian's role in stabilizing it. She saved us, he said, eyes sweeping the officers. Without her, this outpost would be ash. Lyrian stood in the corner, motionless, arms crossed tightly, her glowing veins flickering faintly, like a flame on the verge of fading. Her emerald eyes were fixed on the floor, but her scars seemed deeper in the unforgiving light. Engineer Harris shot to his feet, cutting in. Captain, she knows too much about this thing. His voice was sharp, laced with suspicion, finger jabbing at Lyrian. How do we know she didn't trigger the core on purpose? She's Elithar, not human. Murmurs rippled through the room, a few officers nodding, their gazes sliding to Lyrian. She didn't look up, but Ethan saw her shoulders tremble, as if Harris's words were knives. He slammed his fist on the table, the sound silencing the room. She saved us, Harris, he growled, voice low, commanding. She's earned our trust. You, if you've got no proof, shut up. Harris sat, face flushed, but his eyes burned with resentment. Sergeant Nora Blake, beside him, stayed silent, her gaze flickering between Ethan and Lyrian, as if weighing something. Ethan felt the air grow heavy, suspicion spreading like poisoned smoke. He ended the briefing, ordering preparations for an emergency scenario. As the others left, he looked at Lyrian, still rooted in the corner. You didn't need to hear that, he said, voice softening. She didn't respond, only walked out, her slender form melting into the steel corridor. Ethan found Lyrian in the underground lab, blue screen light bathing her scarred face, her veins glinting faintly, as if she were exhausted. She sat before a monitor, analyzing core data, fingers darting across the console. The metal shard from the orb lay on the table, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan paused at the threshold, watching her. Something in her posture, shoulders hunched, head bowed, made him feel she carried an unseen weight. You don't need to prove anything to them, he said, stepping closer, voice gentle but firm. Lyrian froze, fingers halting on the console. She looked at him, emerald eyes cold but brimming with pain. Captain, she said, voice low, almost a whisper. I'm no hero. I worked with another guidance corps back home. And I failed. She turned away, scars seeming deeper in the dim light. An Elithar team died because of me. Ethan stood stunned, caught off guard by her confession. He stepped closer, sitting beside her, the steel chair creaking. That wasn't your fault, he said, voice steady. You did everything you could. Lyrian shook her head, a bitter smile curving her lips. You don't understand. I'm not just the burned. I was exiled from Elithra for it. My kind said my veins were a curse, that I'd bring ruin wherever I went. She raised her hand, veins glowing faintly, like a fire about to die. Ethan studied her hand, the uneven veins, as if torn and stitched back together. He wanted to speak, but words caught in his throat. Instead, he placed his hand over hers, gentle but resolute. "They were wrong," he said, eyes locked on hers. "You saved us out there. You're not a curse. You're who we need." Lyrian froze, emerald eyes widening, as if his words were foreign, unbelievable. She pulled her hand back, turning away, but Ethan caught a flicker of emotion on her face, hope, or pain, he couldn't tell. Before he could say more, an urgent alert blared, sharp, slicing the silence. The screen flashed, a patrol soldier's voice crackling through the comms. "Captain, we found a structure underground, near where the core appeared. It's glowing, like Elithar tech." Ethan sprang up, eyes sharp. He looked at Lyrian, frozen, clutching the shard. "Elithar structure?" he asked, voice low. Lyrian nodded, but her eyes were uneasy, as if she knew something he didn't. "You coming with me?" Ethan asked, no hint of doubt. Lyrian met his gaze, emerald eyes flashing with resolve and fear. "I have to," she said, voice low. "If it's Elithar tech, I'm the only one who understands it." She stood, shard in hand, veins flickering. Ethan nodded, unease growing. This structure could be an answer, or a new threat. As they left the lab, the distant storm's howl echoed through the corridor, like Valthra's warning. Valthra's underground cavern was frigid, the air thick with the scent of metal and scorched stone. Patrol flashlights swept the stone walls, revealing glowing symbols, weaving like rivers of stars. Ethan Ward led the way, step steady, energy rifle grip tight. Lyrian followed, her slender form slicing through the dark, her veins glinting, mirroring the wall symbols. Nora Blake and 3 patrol soldiers closed the formation, eyes wary. The distant storm's wail mingled with the faint hum of the ancient Elithar structure, hidden deep within. Lyrian paused, hand brushing a wall symbol. Her veins flared, as if answering. "This is a memory vault," she said, voice trembling, nearly a whisper. "It holds not just memories, but the souls of ancient Elithar." Ethan turned, eyes sharp. "Souls?" he asked, voice low. Lyrian nodded, emerald eyes glinting in the dark. "Encoded in guidance cores. But this place, it shouldn't be opened." She turned away, scars deepening in the dim light. Ethan's unease grew, but he signaled the team deeper. The walls narrowed, symbols blazing, as if watching. Nora gripped her rifle, eyes flicking to Lyrian, suspicious. A soldier whispered, voice tense. "This place isn't right, Captain." Ethan didn't respond, eyes fixed on the dark ahead. Suddenly, a deep, feral roar echoed, shaking the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a plasma wraith, a shapeless, blinding mass with writhing energy tendrils, materialized, hovering. It had no form, only searing light, tendrils lashing like whips. "Get back!" Ethan shouted, firing. Energy bolts pierced the wraith, useless. It lunged, a tendril knocking a soldier down, his scream cut short as he collapsed. Nora fired relentlessly, to no avail. Lyrian surged forward, veins blazing like wildfire. She raised her hand, facing the wraith, and it froze, as if bound by an unseen force. "It's a guardian!" she gasped, voice trembling. "It thinks we're intruders." Ethan stood stunned, watching Lyrian commune with the entity. Her veins pulsed, sinking with the wraith's light. It shuddered, emitting a chilling hum, then dissolved, revealing a deeper passage. Lyrian collapsed, hands braced on the ground, breathing hard. Ethan rushed to her, helping her up. "You okay?" he asked, voice hoarse. She nodded, but her emerald eyes were uneasy. "I told it we're not enemies," she whispered. "But it doesn't fully believe me." Nora stepped forward, eyes cold. "She controls that thing," she hissed to Ethan, voice thick with suspicion. "She's more dangerous than we thought, Captain." Ethan spun, eyes icy. "She just saved us, Nora. Focus on the mission." Nora backed off, but her gaze lingered on Lyrian, as if cataloging her every move. Ethan supported Lyrian, feeling her tremble. You did it, he said, voice soft but firm. Lyrian didn't respond, only stared at the new passage, eyes heavy with dread. The team entered a vast central chamber, its ceiling glittering like a starfield. At its heart, a second guidance core, larger, blazed fiercely, like a caged sun. Its hum echoed, deep and haunting, like thousands of voices whispering as one. Ethan's skin prickled, but Lyrian froze, emerald eyes wide. No, it can't be, she whispered, pointing to a wall symbol, a circle with weaving veins, identical to hers. This is my clan's vault, she said, voice trembling. I shouldn't be here. Ethan stepped closer, eyes on her. Your clan? He asked, voice low. Before Lyrian could answer, the core flared, a blinding explosion of light forcing the team to shield their eyes. Visions flooded the air. A tall Elithar woman, veins like Lyrian's, stood amid flames. Her veins glowed brilliantly, but her face was etched with pain, as if battling something unseen. The fire engulfed her, but she didn't fall, raising her hand to the core, as if sending a message. Who is that? Ethan asked, voice hoarse, eyes fixed on the vision. Lyrian stood frozen, hands clenched, veins flickering. My mother, she whispered, voice breaking. She turned away, scars glinting in the core's light, as if hiding tears. Ethan's heart tightened. He wanted to ask more, but the core's hum rose, shaking the ground. Nora and the soldiers backed off, rifles raised, eyes panicked. We need to get out, Nora shouted. Ethan grabbed Lyrian's hand, pulling her from the vision. We'll figure it out later, he said, voice firm. Survive first. Lyrian nodded, but her eyes clung to her mother's image, as if fearing it would vanish. The team retreated, the core's hum echoing behind, like a warning. Nora trailed, eyes on Lyrian, suspicious. Ethan's unease grew. This memory vault wasn't just a relic. It was a secret, and Lyrian was its key, a key even she didn't fully understand. The memory vault's exit collapsed as the team approached, stones crashing, sealing the way out. Dust choked the air, the guidance core's hum piercing, like a challenge from Valthera's depths. Ethan gripped his rifle, eyes sharp, scanning the dark for gaps. Nora and the soldiers panicked, their shouts lost in the stone's clatter. Lyrian stood rigid, emerald eyes blazing, fixed on the core, as if it called her. We can't abandon it, she whispered, voice trembling but resolute, veins flickering faintly. If it loses control, Zenith 4 is dust. Ethan looked at her, unease mixing with trust. You sure? He asked, voice low. She nodded, scars glinting in the dim light. I have to try, Captain. For my mother. They turned back to the central chamber, where the core blazed, a caged sun ready to devour all. The core's blinding light flooded the chamber, wall symbols glinting like falling stars. The vision of Lyrian's mother persisted, so vivid Ethan felt she stood before them. She stood in an ancient lab, glowing metal devices around her, hand touching a smaller guidance core, veins blazing like fire. But the core erupted, an energy blast swallowing the room, her screams sharp, anguished. The vision faded, revealing other Elithar, faces furious, accusing her of betrayal, of destroying their legacy. Lyrian stood frozen, hands clenched, veins flickering, as if echoing her mother's pain. They said I carry her veins, she whispered, voice trembling, nearly breaking. A curse. That's why I was exiled from Elithera. Her emerald eyes locked on the core, scars glinting, as if hiding tears. Ethan stepped forward, taking her hand, feeling the tremor in her cold palm. You're not your mother, he said, voice unwavering. You saved us out there, Lyrian. You'll prove them wrong. Lyrian looked at him, eyes wide, as if his words were a light in the dark. But before she could reply, the core shuddered, a deep, feral roar shaking the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling, symbols flashing, as if warning. Nora and the soldiers backed off, rifles raised, eyes panicked. It's unstable again, Nora shouted, voice tense. Lyrian pulled free, lunging to the core, veins blazing like wildfire. I have to stop it, she cried, hands pressing its searing surface. Light engulfed her, and a new vision emerged, sharper, more terrifying. Lyrian's mother, now in a ravaged room, faced a formless entity, a shadow with blazing red eyes. "The void," she whispered, voice trembling but resolute. She raised her hand, veins glowing, trying to halt the core before her from erupting. "You can't take it!" she cried, but the shadow surged, and the core exploded, consuming her. The vision ended, but its message was clear. Lyrian's mother wasn't a traitor. She'd fought to stop an alien force, the void, from seizing the core. Lyrian collapsed, gasping, veins fading. "The void's still here," she said, eyes wide, voice trembling. "It's manipulating this core." Ethan rushed to her, supporting her, but before he could speak, Nora drew her pistol, aiming at Lyrian. "I knew it!" she shouted, voice icy. "You're the void's spy, aren't you? You led us into a trap." The soldiers raised their rifles, eyes wavering between Nora and Lyrian. Ethan lunged, shoving Nora's barrel aside, shielding Lyrian. "She's not the enemy, Nora!" he roared, voice low, commanding. "Lower your weapon now!" Nora stepped back, but her eyes burned with suspicion. "She knows about the void," she said, voice shaking. "How, unless she's part of it?" Lyrian stood, hands trembling, but her emerald eyes were cold. "I know because my mother died to stop it," she said, voice low, raw with pain. "I'm no spy." Ethan looked at her, seeing truth in her gaze, but before he could speak, the core quaked violently. An energy wave erupted, flinging the team down. The ceiling cracked, stones crashing, collapsing part of the cavern, sealing the exit. Dust choked the air, drowning Nora's and the soldiers' screams. As the dust settled, Ethan coughed, crawling up, his armor's flashlight flickering. Lyrian lay nearby, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead, veins faint. He rushed to her, lifting her, checking her pulse. "Lyrian, wake up!" he called, voice hoarse. Her eyes fluttered open, emerald gaze dim but alive. "I'm okay," she whispered, struggling to sit. Ethan scanned the chamber, the stone wall blocking the exit. Nora and the patrol were cut off on the other side, leaving him and Lyrian alone with the core, now blazing, its hum a warning. "We're trapped," Ethan said, voice low, eyes sweeping the cavern. He checked his comms, but static answered. Lyrian stood, leaning on the wall, veins flickering. "The void," she said, voice trembling. "It knows we're here. It wants the core." Ethan stared at the core, a chill spreading. "What is it, Lyrian?" he asked, voice sharp. She turned away, scars glinting in the core's light. "An ancient consciousness," she whispered. "It manipulates, destroys. My mother tried to stop it, and I have to finish what she started." Ethan gripped her shoulders, eyes hard. "You're not doing this alone," he said. "We'll get out, and we'll stop the void." Lyrian looked at him, a spark of hope in her eyes, but fear lingered. The core pulsed, its hum rising, as if agreeing, or challenging. Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle, danger swelling. They were trapped, but one thing was certain, Lyrian wasn't the enemy. She was the flame to light the way, and he wouldn't let her fight alone. The collapsed cavern's darkness was thick, broken only by the faint glow of Ethan Ward's armor-mounted flashlight. The air was heavy, stifling, each breath sapping strength. The guidance core at the chamber's heart hovered, its light flickering like a dying heartbeat. Lyrian slumped against a stone wall, gasping, her veins glowing faintly, a flame on the verge of fading. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, mingling with her scars, dimming her emerald eyes with exhaustion. Ethan knelt beside her, eyes sharp, scanning for an escape. "Lyrian, stay with me," he said, voice low but gentle, as if fearing she'd slip away without his anchor. She nodded weakly, eyelids heavy. Ethan swept his flashlight across the walls, its beam catching cracks, searching for any sign of a way out. Stones crunched underfoot, mingling with the core's faint hum in the oppressive silence. He needed to keep her talking, keep her here. "Tell me about your mother," he said, voice soft, more an invitation than a question. Lyrian's eyes fluttered open, breath trembling. "She was a brilliant scientist," she whispered, voice breaking. She sought to use guidance cores to link the stars. But they called her reckless, said she destroyed Elithar's legacy. A bitter laugh escaped her, hollow. I grew up in their scorn. But my mother taught me our veins, they're the flame of truth. Ethan paused, looking at her, his gaze softening. She was right, he said, a faint smile tugging his lips. And you're proving it, Lyrian. You face the core, the void. You don't quit. Lyrian met his eyes, emerald gaze flickering with an unreadable emotion, hope or pain, he couldn't tell. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Ethan caught her, feeling the weight of her slender frame. We're getting out, he said, voice resolute. Together. He guided her to a narrow fissure in the wall, the flashlight revealing a tight gap. Ethan smashed the stone with his rifles, but fragments clattering. Air seeped through, faint but enough to spark hope. Almost there, he rasped. But as he struck harder, a piercing shriek cut the dark, not from the core, but from the shadows. A void entity materialized, a formless black wraith, its red eyes blazing like hellfire. It didn't move, but Ethan felt a crushing pressure on his mind, as if it were invading him. Lyrian screamed, collapsing, clutching her head. It's attacking, she gasped, veins flaring unevenly as if choked. Ethan fired, bolts passing harmlessly through the wraith. It advanced, red eyes locked on Lyrian. She staggered up, raising her hand, veins blazing like a defiant flame. You won't take it, she cried, voice trembling but resolute, echoing her mother's memory. Her veins' light repelled the wraith, its shriek fading as it dissolved into the dark. Lyrian crumpled, unconscious, veins extinguished. Ethan rushed to her, panic gripping him. Lyrian, wake up, he shouted, voice breaking. I need you. He shook her, feeling her faint breath. Her eyes opened, emerald gaze dim but alive. You really trust me, she whispered, voice so weak he leaned close to hear. Ethan nodded, squeezing her hand. More than myself, he said, voice hoarse, eyes fixed on her. He helped her stand, returning to the fissure. With his last strength, he shattered the stone, opening a narrow exit. He pulled Lyrian through, fresh air flooding their lungs. They stumbled out, Valthra's faint light washing over them. The storm subsided. Ethan checked her, her breathing weak but steady. You did it, he said, voice soft. Lyrian gave a faint smile, silent, as if her strength was spent. Back at Zenith 4, Nora and the patrol waited at the gate. Nora rushed forward, eyes worried, but froze at Lyrian's sight, suspicion returning. She's alive, she said, voice cold. Ethan didn't respond, guiding Lyrian into the steel corridor. But in the operations room, Engineer Harris stood, eyes hostile. Captain, he said, voice sharp. Command's been informed. They deem her a threat. A special forces team is coming to take her. Ethan froze, anger flaring. You reported her? He roared, seizing Harris's collar. She just saved us, Harris. Harris recoiled, but his gaze held firm. She knows about the void, he said. She's more dangerous than any core. Lyrian, leaning against the wall, heard it all, silent. Her emerald eyes dropped to the floor, as if betrayal was familiar. Ethan turned, eyes hard. She's not going anywhere, he said, voice low. No one touches her. But a ship's engines rumbled in the distance, searchlights sweeping Valthra's sky. The special forces had arrived. Ethan looked at Lyrian, seeing fear in her eyes, but also resolve. They'd survived the void, but the real challenge was just beginning. The roar of ship engines thundered over Valthra, special forces searchlights sweeping Zenith 4, making the black sand glitter like shattered stars. In the operations room, Ethan Ward stood shielding Lyrian, eyes steely, facing Colonel Vance, a towering man, face stern, black armor gleaming with Alliance insignia. The special forces team, heavily armed, surrounded the room, energy rifles primed. Lyrian stood behind Ethan, motionless, veins flickering faintly, emerald eyes fixed on the floor, as if accustomed to being hunted. Detain her, Vance ordered, voice low, icy, pointing at Lyrian. She's a potential threat. Ethan stepped forward, fists clenched, voice sharp. She's saved this outpost twice. She risked her life to stop the guidance core. She's not the enemy. Vance narrowed his eyes, expression unyielding. Captain, we have evidence, he said, pulling a display device from his pocket. Footage played Harris, in the monitoring room, sabotaging core tracking equipment, eyes furtive. Harris is the spy, Vance said. He worked for a covert group seeking Elithar tech. But that doesn't clear her. Ethan spun, glaring at Harris, held by two operatives. Harris's face paled, but his eyes burned with resentment. You betrayed us? Ethan roared, voice trembling with rage. You triggered the core, endangered the outpost. Harris smirked, voice hoarse. Elithar tech is worth more than anyone here. She's just a pawn. He jabbed a finger at Larian, eyes dripping with contempt. Ethan lunged, seizing Harris's collar, but Vance raised a hand. Enough, Captain, he said. We'll handle Harris. But she's still to be detained. Larian spoke, voice clear but resolute, cutting through the tension. I'll surrender to you, she said, stepping from Ethan's shadow. Her emerald eyes met Vance's, fearless. But let me finish with the core. It's still a threat. The void is closing in. Vance tilted his head, eyes probing. You know more than you're saying, don't you? He asked, voice low. Larian didn't answer, only nodded. Give me time, she said. Then do what you want with me. Ethan turned to her, eyes panicked. Larian, no, he said, voice hoarse. You don't have to do this. But Larian looked at him, a bitter smile curving her lips. Captain, I'm used to being the enemy, she whispered. But I won't let the void win. Vance nodded, signaling the operatives. Fine, he said. But you'll be under strict watch. One wrong move, and you're done. Larian nodded, veins flaring faintly, as if accepting her fate. Ethan, Larian, and a special forces team returned to the underground memory vault. The air reeked of scorched stone, the guidance core at the chamber's heart blazing, its hum shrill, like a distant call. Wall symbols pulsed, syncing with Larian's veins, as if welcoming her. Ethan stood beside her, rifle gripped, eyes scanning the operatives, ready to act if they touched her. You okay? He asked, voice low. Larian nodded, but her scars glinted, hiding pain. I have to do this, she said, voice trembling. For my mother. For everyone. She approached the core, hand touching its searing surface. Her veins erupted, light flooding the chamber. A new vision emerged, sharp, terrifying. Harris, in a hidden room, spoke to another Elithar, a tall female warrior, veins identical to Larian's but brighter, colder. She stood before a signal device, eyes vacant, as if controlled. This tech will be ours, she said, voice icy. The void will lead the way. Harris nodded, eyes greedy. Larian froze, hands trembling, veins fading. That's my sister, she whispered, eyes wide, voice breaking. Silvara. She's alive, and she's behind this. Ethan rushed to her, gripping her shoulders, eyes frantic. Your sister? He asked, voice hoarse. Larian turned away, scars glinting in the core's light. She vanished after my mother's explosion, she said, voice trembling. I thought she was dead. But if she's with the void. The core shuddered, its hum rising, like a warning cry. The operatives raised their rifles, eyes tense. One whispered into a comm. Colonel, she's activating something. Ethan spun, shouting. She's trying to stop it. Lower your weapons! But the operative's eyes stayed on Larian, as if she were a bomb about to detonate. Ethan shielded her, eyes hard. She's not a spy, he said, voice low. She's the only one who can save us. Larian stared at the core, emerald eyes brimming with pain. Silvara, she whispered, as if her sister's name were a prayer. The vision faded, but the core's hum echoed, as if the void were answering. Ethan took her hand, feeling her tremble. We'll find the truth, he said, voice firm. Together. Larian nodded, but her eyes were heavy with dread, as if this secret would destroy everything. Silvara's vision dissolved, but the guidance core's hum lingered, a whisper from the dark. Lyrian stood frozen, hands trembling, veins dimming, like a flame crushed by wind. The Special Forces operatives raised their rifles, eyes cold, ready to drag her away. "Enough!" one barked voice taut. But Lyrian turned, emerald eyes blazing, facing them. "My sister is bringing the void here," she said, voice low, resolute. "If I don't find a way to stop the core, Valthra will be annihilated." Ethan stepped forward, shielding her, eyes steely. "Give her time," he said, voice low, commanding. "She's our only chance." The operatives hesitated, eyes wavering, and Lyrian turned to the core, wall symbols flickering, as if awaiting her. In the memory vault, the core's light pulsed violently, like a dying heart. Wall symbols vibrated, emitting a faint hum, as if warning. Lyrian stood before the core, hands trembling, veins glowing faintly, mirroring the pain in her emerald eyes. Ethan stood beside her, energy rifle gripped, eyes fixed on the operatives behind, watching her every second. The air reeked of scorched stone, the distant storm's wail a reminder that Valthra was never safe. Lyrian turned to Ethan, voice trembling, nearly a whisper. "My sister, Silvara, she was an Elithar warrior," she said, scars glinting in the dim light. "After my mother's explosion, she vanished. I thought she was dead. But if she's with the void—" She stopped, eyes wide, as if the truth were too heavy to voice. Ethan took her hand, feeling the chill in her palm. "We'll find the truth," he said, voice unwavering. "Together." Lyrian looked at him, a spark of hope in her eyes, but fear clung tight. She approached the core, hand touching its blazing surface. Her veins erupted, light flooding the chamber, forcing the operatives back, rifles raised. But before Lyrian could act, a deep, feral roar echoed from the core. A void entity, stronger than any before, materialized, a massive black wraith, its red eyes blazing like molten forges, radiating a mind-crushing pressure. Ethan's head spun, as if the void were clawing at his deepest fears. "Ethan!" Lyrian screamed, but the wraith lunged, a tendril of black light striking him. Ethan collapsed, blood seeping from a deep gash on his arm, staining his armor. He gritted his teeth, standing, firing relentlessly, but the bolts passed through useless. "Run!" he shouted, staggering to shield Lyrian, ignoring the pain. She shook her head, emerald eyes blazing. "I won't leave you!" she cried, raising her hand, veins flaring, a flame defying the dark. The void shrieked, red eyes locking on Lyrian. She screamed, body trembling as her veins erupted in light, repelling the entity. The pressure in Ethan's mind eased, but the core quaked violently, hurling energy shards like razor glass across the chamber. One pierced Ethan's shoulder, dropping him to his knees. "Lyrian!" he called, voice hoarse, crawling toward her. She turned, seeing his blood, her eyes flashing with desperation. "If I die," she said, voice trembling, hands still on the core, "tell them I wasn't the burned." Ethan shook his head, eyes fierce. "You're not dying!" he roared, voice breaking. "I won't let you!" He staggered up, pulling her from the core, but she pushed back, resolute. "I have to stop it!" she cried, veins blazing, as if burning herself out. Lyrian activated the core one final time, light engulfing her, and a new vision emerged, sharp, terrifying. Silvara, Lyrian's sister, stood on an alien ship, vast and black, hovering in space. Her veins glowed cold, like ice, her eyes vacant, controlled. Around her, void wraiths swirled, and a deep, inhuman voice echoed. "Valthra will be the beginning. The core will be ours." Silvara nodded, expressionless, as the ship moved, heading for Valthra. The vision dissolved, and the core collapsed, its light shrinking, then erupting in a shockwave. Ethan lunged, pulling Lyrian down, shielding her from debris. The ceiling cracked, stones crashing, and the operatives screamed, scattering. Ethan held Lyrian tight, rolling into a crevice, barely escaping as the memory vault caved in. Dust choked the air, stone clatter drowning all sound. As it settled, Ethan coughed, checking Lyrian. She lay in his arms, breathing faintly, veins dim, but alive. You did it, he whispered, voice hoarse, wiping blood from her forehead. Lyrian opened her eyes, emerald gaze exhausted, but a faint smile curved her lips. You didn't leave me, she whispered. Ethan nodded, squeezing her hand. Never, he said, voice firm. He helped her stand, stumbling out, Valthra's dim light washing over them. The storm had calmed, but Ethan sensed a greater one looming. The surviving operatives rushed forward, rifles still aimed at Lyrian. Ethan shielded her, eyes icy. She just saved us all, he roared. Lower your weapons! One operative backed off, but their eyes held suspicion. Ethan looked at Lyrian, seeing pain in her gaze as Silvara's image haunted her. Silvara, she whispered, voice trembling. She's bringing the void here. Ethan gripped her shoulders, eyes hard. We'll stop her, he said. You're not fighting alone. Lyrian nodded, but her eyes were heavy with dread, as if this battle would destroy all she'd ever loved. The cold glow of screens in Zenith 4's operations room bathed Lyrian's scarred face, her veins flickering faintly, like a flame clinging to life. Ethan Ward stood beside her, eyes sharp, briefing Colonel Vance on Silvara and the void. The air was heavy, the faint hum of machinery blending with the distant storm's wail. Lyrian stood still, hands clenched, emerald eyes brimming with pain as she spoke of her sister. She's alive, she whispered, voice trembling, but working with the void. Vance, face stern, nodded, his gaze fixed on Lyrian. The void isn't a single entity, he said, voice low, icy. It's a network of ancient consciousness, manipulating civilizations to protect itself. Silvara may be their puppet, controlled by an implant. He activated a display device, showing a complex web of light, like a cosmic spider's web, with glowing nodes marking fallen civilizations. Valthra is their next target, Vance said. And Silvara is their key. Lyrian shook her head, scars twitching. She's my family, she said, voice breaking. She'd never betray us. Never. Ethan took her hand, feeling the tremor in her cold palm. Family doesn't abandon family, he said, eyes resolute. We'll save her, Lyrian. She looked at him, emerald eyes flashing with hope, but pain lingered, an unhealed wound. Before they could plan, an explosion shook the outpost. Alarms blared, screens flashing, showing a small fleet in Valthra's sky, black ships glinting with cold light, led by a massive command vessel. The feed zoomed in, revealing Silvara on the bridge, her veins glowing icy, eyes vacant, as if possessed. Plasma orbs rained from the fleet, detonating across the rocky plateau, igniting the black sand. They're attacking! Nora shouted through the comms, voice panicked. Ethan turned to Vance. We need to defend, he roared, gripping his energy rifle. Vance nodded, ordering the special forces. Captain, hold the outpost. She goes with you. He pointed at Lyrian, eyes suspicious. Ethan didn't respond, pulling Lyrian out, leading a defense team to Zenith 4's steel walls. Black sand swirled in the storm, plasma explosions lighting the sky like a nightmare. Lyrian stood beside Ethan, veins blazing, as if reacting to the orb's energy. Silvara isn't doing this by choice, Lyrian said, voice trembling, eyes fixed on the command ship. I feel the void in her. An implant, like Vance said. Ethan looked at her, seeing resolve in her emerald gaze. What's your plan? He asked, voice low. Lyrian turned, eyes unwavering. I have to get up there, she said. I'll face my sister. I'll bring her back. Ethan gripped her shoulders, eyes frantic. Lyrian, that's suicide, he said, voice hoarse. The void will kill you. But she shook her head, a bitter smile curving her lips. If I don't, Valthra's gone, she said. And I can't lose her again. Before Ethan could stop her, she ran to a small fighter in the hangar, the operatives too busy fighting to intervene. Ethan chased, shouting, Lyrian, wait! She paused at the ship's door, turning, emerald eyes brimming with emotion. Captain, she said, voice low. If I don't come back, tell them I tried. Ethan seized her hand, squeezing tight, as if he could keep her there. Come back, Lyrian, he said, voice hoarse, eyes locked on hers. I need you. She nodded, a flicker of emotion crossing her face, hope or pain, he couldn't tell. Then she boarded, the door sealed, and the engines roared, launching her into the storm's heart. Ethan stood frozen, watching Lyrian's ship vanish in the plasma glow. Explosions shook the outpost, defense team shouts ringing out, but he heard only his pounding heart. He turned, raising his rifle, leading the fight against the plasma orbs, but his mind was on the command ship, where Lyrian faced her sister, and the void. She'll do it. He muttered a prayer, but unease clung tight. Silvara wasn't just a controlled warrior. She was part of Lyrian, and if Lyrian failed, Valthera would pay. In the sky, Lyrian's ship weaved through explosions, nearing the command vessel. From afar, Ethan saw its lights flicker, as if the void were responding. He gripped his rifle, eyes on the sky, knowing this battle wasn't just about Zenith 4 or Valthera. It was about Lyrian, and whether she triumph or be consumed by her past. On the command ship's bridge, the air was frigid, blue light from consoles casting shadows on Lyrian's scarred face. Her veins blazed, a flame defying the dark, but her emerald eyes were heavy with pain as she faced her sister. Silvara stood before her, towering, veins glowing cold as ice, eyes vacant, consumed by the void. A metal implant gleamed on her temple, pulsing red. The burn should be forgotten, Silvara said, voice sharp, emotionless, lunging with a blast of black energy. Lyrian dodged, rolling across the metal floor, heart aching. You're not this, she cried, raising her hand, veins erupting. She channeled memories through their veins connection, childhood days running through Elithera's glowing fields, their mother smiling under a starlit sky. You're my family, Lyrian screamed, voice breaking. A spark flickered in Silvara's eyes, her vacant gaze wavering, as if memories pierced the void's fog. But the implant flared, and Silvara shrieked, attacking with fiercer strength, a blow sending Lyrian crashing down, blood trickling from her lips. Under Valthera's sky, Zenith 4 trembled under plasma barrages. Ethan Ward on the steel wall led the defense against the void's fleet. Black ships hovered, launching plasma orbs, igniting the rocky plateau. Hold the line, Ethan shouted through the comms, firing his energy rifle, but the fleet overwhelmed. An explosion knocked Nora down, and Vance's special forces crumbled under the enemy's might. Ethan gritted his teeth, eyes on the sky where Lyrian's ship vanished in the plasma glow. Lyrian, you have to do it, he muttered, heart pounding. On the command ship, Lyrian staggered up, veins dimming, but her eyes burned with resolve. You're not a puppet, she cried, lunging at Silvara, dodging a black energy blast. She seized her sister's hand, their veins touching, erupting in light. Memories flooded, Silvara holding her after their mother's explosion, whispering they'd always be family. Come back to me, Silvara, Lyrian screamed, tears streaking her cheeks. Silvara froze, hand trembling, but the void intervened, the implant blazing, forcing her to strike harder. Lyrian, exhausted, knew she had one chance. She lunged, hand grasping the implant on Silvara's temple, veins blazing, burning her own energy. A piercing shriek echoed, the implant exploding, and Silvara collapsed, her vacant eyes slowly clearing, brimming with emotion. She embraced Lyrian, voice trembling. You saved me. But Lyrian crumpled, veins fading, body cold. I kept my promise, she whispered, a faint smile on her lips, eyes closing. At Zenith 4, Ethan heard Lyrian scream through the comms, his heart clenching. Lyrian, don't leave me, he roared, voice breaking, but the signal cut. A blinding light erupted in the sky. The command ship unleashed a massive energy pulse, spreading like a tidal wave, obliterating the void's fleet. Black ships exploded, debris falling like meteor showers. But the command ship spiraled, crashing into the plateau, the explosion shaking Valthera. Ethan sprinted from the outpost, ignoring dust and fire. Lyrian, he shouted, racing to the command ship's wreckage. Operatives tried to stop him, but he shoved past, wading through smoldering metal. He found Larian amid the rubble, Silvara cradling her, both motionless. Ethan knelt, checking Larian, heart racing as he felt her faint breath. Her veins were nearly gone, a mere flicker remaining. "You did it," he whispered, voice hoarse, holding her close. "You saved us all." Silvara opened her eyes, gaze heavy with pain. "She saved me," she said, voice trembling, looking at Larian. "I let the void control me." Ethan nodded, eyes on Larian. "She never abandoned family," he said, voice low. He called for medics, but as they arrived, Larian remained unconscious, body cold. Silvara stood, veins glowing faintly, eyes resolute. "I'll make this right," she said. "For my sister." Ethan held Larian, unease gripping him. The void was defeated, but the cost was steep. "You have to live, Larian," he whispered, wiping blood from her forehead. "I need you." Vance and Nora approached, expressions complex. "She saved us," Nora said, voice low, free of suspicion for the first time. Vance nodded, ordering Larian to the med bay. Ethan followed, holding her hand, knowing that despite victory, Larian's, and his, fight wasn't over. Days after the battle, Larian lay in the med bay, her veins dim, like stars about to fade. Silvara never left her side, eyes heavy with pain but resolute, tending her sister as atonement. Ethan stood at the door, hands clenched, eyes fixed on Larian, as if fearing she'd vanish. "She's stronger than all of us," Silvara whispered, her veins glowing faintly, like Larian's but steadier. Weeks passed, and Larian stirred, body frail but emerald eyes blazing, a flame that never died. Zenith 4, from ashes, began to transform. Human and Elithar scientists arrived, bringing equipment, analyzing guidance core data, forging a new alliance. The cold steel corridors now echoed with footsteps and voices, free of suspicion or fear. Walls bore Elithar symbols, glinting like promises of a shared future. But on the outpost's roof, where Valthra's winds blew softly, Larian sought silence, as if unaccustomed to peace's light. Larian stood alone, gazing at the night sky, stars twinkling like core fragments. Her veins glowed faintly, no longer erratic, but her scars told of days as the burned. She'd recovered physically, but her soul bore invisible wounds. Hailed as a hero, she preferred the lab's solitude, analyzing core shards, seeking answers to her past. Silvara, now an outpost advisor, helped Larian reconcile with painful memories. One evening, she found her in the lab, eyes gentle but firm. "You don't need to hide," Silvara said, veins blazing, like Larian's but stronger. "Our mother fought for Elithara. You fought for Valthara. We're not a curse." Larian nodded, but her gaze was distant, as if not ready to believe in herself. Footsteps broke the roof's silence. Ethan Ward appeared, tall in simple armor, free of battle's blood and dust. He paused, eyes sweeping Larian, standing under the stars, veins glinting like a river of light. "Knew I'd find you here," he said, voice low, warm. Larian turned, emerald eyes flashing surprise, then softening. "Captain," she said, voice light. "You still won't leave me alone, will you?" Ethan smiled, stepping closer, pulling a shimmering core fragment from his pocket, glowing like a gem in his palm. "Keep it," he said, placing it in her hand. "To remember you're the flame that lights the way." Larian held the fragment, fingers trembling. Her veins flared, sinking with its light, like a whisper from the past. She looked at him, eyes wavering, searching. "Captain," she asked, voice trembling, "why didn't you give up on me? When everyone called me the burned a threat?" Ethan stood still, eyes locked on hers. He stepped closer, voice low but certain, each word deliberate. "Because I saw you, Larian," he said. "Not the scars, not the veins, but the one who faced the dark and brought back light. You saved Silvara, Zenith 4, me. You're extraordinary." His words were a gentle breeze, piercing the walls Larian had built around her heart. She fell silent, emerald eyes meeting his, blazing under the stars, but said nothing, as if unsure how to accept it. I don't believe that yet, she said at last, voice soft as Valthra's wind, nearly a whisper. But thank you, Ethan. She used his name, no rank, and it drew a true smile from him, unguarded. Lyrian lifted her chin, letting starlight bathe her veins, no longer hiding her scars or herself. The core fragment in her hand glinted, a reminder she'd conquered not just the void, but her own darkness. Ethan stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, gazing at the sky. A new star shone, brighter than the rest, as if born from Valthra's ashes. What do you see up there? He asked, voice low. Lyrian tilted her head, veins glowing faintly. Hope, she said, voice surer than ever. And a chance to start again. Ethan nodded, eyes on the star. Together, he said, not a question, but a promise. From afar, Silvara's laughter mingled with the scientists, blending with the wind. Zenith 4 was no longer a place of war, but of new beginnings. Lyrian clutched the core fragment, feeling its weight, but also its strength. She was no longer the burn, no longer exiled or despised. She was Lyrian, the flame that lit the way, and for the first time, she began to believe it. The story closed with Ethan and Lyrian on the outpost's roof, their silhouettes merging with Valthra's light. The sky stretched vast, infinite, and the new star gleamed, a reminder that no matter how fierce the darkness, light always finds a way back.